All right. Bob Arum calls the treatment of Dillian Whyte and Oscar Rivas obscene and wants to do away with mandatory challengers. And the WBA drops Dillian Whyte from its rankings for some reason, whatever it is, that seems like right to me. Let's talk about those things in this video coming up next. All right, welcome back to the channel. Subscribers, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you can be notified when we release more videos. Also, Patreons, thank you guys so much for your support. We got the negotiation series continuing. Also, we got some other political videos we're going to be uploading this week, so definitely check that out. Also, I want to thank you so much to everybody, Gary Benson, cats like Ron Finkley, to support the channel on a daily basis in the Cash App and on the Venmo and the Super Chats. Thank you guys so much. And to everybody that attends the live streams that we do Monday through Friday and on Sunday morning with OG Boxing Talk. Let's get into this. First things first, I can actually say I agree with Bob Arum. Beautiful, beautiful choice of words, man. Beautiful, beautiful choice of words when he called the treatment of Dillian Whyte's positive test for performance-enhancing drugs as obscene. Obscene. Absolutely, positively obscene. Seriously, man, it's the best word that I've ever heard anybody use for that because it is exactly what it is. The WBA drops Dillian Whyte from its rankings like it should, like it did when Luis Ortiz tested positive for a something that could have been a masking agent, but it was a high blood pressure medication. How they dropped Luis Ortiz from the rankings, but they also dropped Oscar Rivas. So I'm not sure what the Oscar Rivas could have been because of the loss. I'm not sure. I have to look to see what the specific reason that they have is, but that seems like right to me. That seems very much like right to me. The reason but some people might not be familiar with the circumstance. So let me just briefly go over the circumstance and talk about how Bob Arum described it. Dillian Whyte fought Oscar Rivas in the UK about 2 weeks ago. By the way, where is the B sample? As the time of this video, I've not heard anything about a B sample. Where's the B sample? Where's the B sample? But anyway, he tests positive for a performance-enhancing drug called D-ball, which is a oral steroid, not legal anywhere at any time. It related to athletic competition. It is straight up illegal, banned by everyone everywhere. It's an old school steroid. And if you get it in your system, you put it in your system on purpose because it's not something that is injected or fed to animals. It's not something that you can get through eating something that had consumed it. It's not a situation like Combuterol with Canelo Alvarez, where you can actually test positive for that if Combuterol was fed to cows in your area and you eat the meat of cows that were exposed to it. You have to actually take D-ball and put it in your mouth. And so he tested positive. They allowed Dillian Whyte to fight regardless. Also, there's an issue around his gloves, how they had two gloves that were approved by Team Rivas. And then on the day of the fight, Dillian Whyte comes in with a third pair, and Oscar Rivas' team is not allowed to review the gloves. So you potentially have him for what anybody knew, he walked into the ring under the influence, having been under the influence of D-ball, of a steroid, not just some performance-enhancing drug, but a straight-up anabolic steroid, and with gloves that had not been checked, by his opponent. So the WBC took away the mandatory title that they were fighting. I think they were fighting for an interim title. They provisionally suspended them and they're going to uphold the suspension depending on their investigation. What Bob Arum said, what I thought was absolutely spot on. He talked about the fact that they had a hearing about it and how Oscar Rivas's team was not in that hearing. And he compared it to a court case where if you have a judge is not allowed to speak to one party without inviting the other party into the conference, because it will raise all kind of alarm bells and make it seem as if the judge is having or one party is having undue influence over another party. And people would pitch a fit about that. But that's exactly what happened with Oscar Rivas and Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte was given a last minute secret meeting to present his case to to the British Boxing Board of Control. Oscar Rivas was not in there, was not in the room, and was not allowed to present to hear the information, know what the circumstances were, and the other side found out about it in the news just like everybody else did. Right? So not just the fact that he came in there with the gloves, not just the fact that he came in there with a sample that had tested dirty, but also the fact that when they adjudicated the issue, Oscar Rivas's team was not only not informed of it, not only not allowed to participate in that adjudication, that hearing, he was also not told anything about it. Now they still, from my understanding, the BBBOC is still not suspended Dillian Whyte, waiting for a B sample. That fight was 2 weeks ago, and we've still not seen where this B sample is. But regardless, I'll also, just like I said in the situation with these pre and post fight tests, and that's something else I want to address. And I'm doing this video because I want to keep this subject alive. This is very, very important, and Eddie Hearn, as much light as possible, should be shined on this so that Eddie Hearn, the BBBOC, will not dare do this to somebody else. Because I suspect since they did it this time that they've probably done it before. That there's a chance that they did it before because they got the whole system in place. And it took a leak to get this out. Somebody had to give this information out. Otherwise, nobody would have known about it. The WBA wouldn't have known about it. The WBC wouldn't have known about it. Oscar Rivas wouldn't have known anything about it. And Dillian Whyte just would have looked like, hey, man, I just beat somebody else. Right? And then, of course, the glove scenario just would have, nobody would have really focused on the gloves either because it's not associated to the performance enhancing drug issue. In any case, that's why I'm going to continue to talk about it. There is something else that that Bob Arum said, though, that I was like, yep, there you go, Bob. Like, all right, I knew there was going to be something I thought was funny business in here. He talked about these mandatories. He talked about how he wishes when you have these superstars, he's talking about the franchise champion. He's like, look, when you get these guys that are making all this money, that are really good fighters, why should we have to waste our time fighting mandatories? If you have somebody like Canelo Alvarez, who is, he's a big money earner in the fight. He's the big, and you give these mandatories and we're not interested. That's like wasting the time fighting these mandatories. Why should he have to fight the mandatory? We believe that, once you get to a certain status, you shouldn't be asked to fight anybody. You should be able to fight whoever you want, whenever you want, to make the most money. That sounds like a true promoter. But in that scenario, do you know what that would bring? You know what that would bring back? That would bring back the time where you had guys like Charlie Burley, who never got a title shot. Because he more than likely could have been a mandatory for somebody, but because they figured that they didn't want him to fight, they didn't want the champion. I'm not sure who the champion is at that point in time. Whoever it was at the time, either middleweight or welterweight in that time frame, they don't want him to fight him. Right. So it's just assume that Sonny Liston was a couple years older than he was, or not a couple years older, that he climbed in the ratings a little earlier than he did. Rocky Marciano doesn't have to fight Sonny Liston, right? Or, hey, Floyd Patterson, let's just not have him fight Sonny Liston. I know Sonny Liston's the number one contender and, he's the mandatory. Let's just do away with that because we already know who's going to win the fight. Let's go have him fight somebody else. If you're not going to fight the mandatory, who's a number 1 through a number 3 guy usually, who are you going to fight? What would ever make you fight somebody, a tough fighter? You can always use the excuse that the guy's not a tough fighter. But anyway, since I was agreeing with Bob Arum, I figured that I would also bring out something that he said, which I think was incredibly self-serving. Anyway, it is what it is. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.